somebody said that, having your teacher salary 75% of the public school is a good goal to ever get to. And most of us were never even remotely close to that. But then when you kind of look at it now, you think, except for the health benefits, we're really not that far off from that number. And so that's been huge to the teachers.
Welcome to the BJU Press Teacher Edition podcast, where Christian educators are encouraged and inspired as we bring you interviews, practical ideas, strategies, and answer your questions about teaching in today's culture. And here's your host, Jenny Copeland.
Welcome back. We are picking back up on our conversation about school choice. Listeners, if you missed out on part one of this conversation, it is a must listen. So be sure to go back and catch up on that. Also, don't forget to visit our website, teachereditionpodcast.com, and go find us on social media, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and we are on YouTube as well. Okay, so in continuing this conversation on school choice, we are again honored to have Jeff Walton, Mike Phillips, and Andrew Fry joining with us again. Each of these brings a unique perspective to this conversation. Jeff Walton works on the national level as the executive director of the American Association of Christian Schools. Mike Phillips is a school principal, but he also brings a state level perspective as he serves as the executive director of the Wisconsin Association of Christian Schools. And Andrew Fry serves as the principal of Colonial Christian School in Indianapolis and brings the perspective from the trenches of being right in a school maneuvering school choice. Thanks again to all three of you for being with us. It's great to have you back.
Good to be here.
Glad to be here.
Glad to be back.
Okay, so in part one, we talked about your response to school choice. How is school choice playing out at your level, as well as what effects you have seen from school choice? We wrapped up right there at the end with identifying what you see as pros of school choice and also some cons or some potential cons, as we talked about. It's all very insightful. So building on that, I want to dig into how school choice affects Christian education and how Christian education has responded. So each of you is interacting with and maneuvering school choice at varying levels, the national level, state, and of course the school level. Are there any changes that you have needed to make in your area of influence as a result of school choice?
Jenny, I'll just comment from our office that the changes that we've had to make are all program changes. So how can we better serve schools? When I became the executive director of the ACS 15 years ago, school accreditation was just this tiny, tiny fraction of what we did as an association. But because of school choice programs primarily, the need for accreditation has exploded. And so it's gone from being this tiny fraction of what we do to being a good part of what 4 people in our office do.
Right, keeping you on the road.
Yeah, and even that is just barely managing to keep up. Might even be too big a word. We're not keeping up. It's a
good
constant
problem,
effort to stay up with it. So.
Yeah, that's great. Mike?
Yeah, I'll let Andrew handle the individual school thing because that's why he's there. But as far as for the Wisconsin, as far as the association, I think one of the big things is just numbers are different, and so really it's you can relate it back to kind of some of the waves of growth and declining of enrollment over the course the past 50 years in Christian education. We just happen to be on a huge uptick that might be steeper than at any other time, but it just feels like the numbers have changed as far as from us is concerned, the association. But the other thing is, for me personally, it's made me more aware of the statewide politics of the whole thing, having to interact more so with, before you're kind of by yourself to do your own little thing. Yeah. Now you got to be alert and aware because it does affect other areas and more schools, and so it's just kind of that broadening your own mind of how to deal with and how to interact with educators from across a variety of spectrums. They're all kind of geared toward one ultimate educational purpose, not philosophically, but just in general educationally.
Right. Yeah, good insight. Andrew?
So school choice has been a tremendous opportunity, but we've had to make real operational and administrative changes. So there's a huge administrative workload to stay in compliance. Because the individual funds are tied to students, we need to report a wide range of detailed data back to the state. So our school calendar were the students in attendance? What course completions do they have? If there's a special education status, English language learners, and that reporting is not simple. In fact, we have a full time office employee whose primary responsibility is just state reporting and compliance. But it
Wow.
but yeah, but it doesn't stop just with reporting. Really, it affects the whole leadership team. We've need to hire a testing coordinator in order to manage all the required statewide testing. Our special education staff has increased in their workload. Um, and the requirements continue to expand. So I mentioned earlier in the first half that Indiana law now requires us to offer summer school for third graders who don't pass a reading test. And so we have to have those teachers in place, and then they have to go through specific training required by law to offer that summer school program. And so, again, we've had to restructure and clarify roles and build new systems, invest time in training, but it's a worthwhile investment, but a significant one.
Yeah, those are really great insights because you think, hey, they're just giving us money. This is great. We collect the money and get the kids and away we go. But that's really, really good. This is really good, a good level of detail from in the trenches, of what this really is to walk through this. So as educators, as leaders, and I guess really as humans, we embrace new things. We adjust as needed, but there's still a wish list because things are never going to be exactly as we would hope they would be, right? That's just how it is being human. But what about school choice? So let's think ideal model. What are some things you wish could change about school choice? It sounds like maybe you wish there was less things to track or turn in or whatever. But thinking ideally, what would you guys from your different perspectives see as things you wish could change? Jeff, if you want to start, that'd be fine.
So the ideal model for school choice would be, Milton Friedman used to say, pin a check to the back of the shirt of every kid and send him off to school. And
Perfect.
that would be the ideal model. You let parents exercise their love for their children, their concern for their children, their desire. They're the people who desire more than anything else to see their child get a good education and succeed. There are exceptions to that. There are parents who don't care. We all realize that. But generally speaking, a parent's a lot better caretaker for a child than a government bureaucrat. And so, you trust parents' instincts and love for their children to make good choices. You let market forces work. So if a school isn't producing, parents aren't going to keep sending their kid there. They've got a $7,000 scholarship that they can take to a school down the street. So the ideal school choice program, I actually had this conversation in a Zoom meeting with some leaders in a state that's looking at a school choice program right now. And somebody on the Department of Education side said, well, we have to have accountability mechanisms. And I said, why don't we trust parents and the markets? And explained what I just explained to you. Well, we can't really trust those people was kind of the take from the Department of Education. And so there will almost necessarily follow some kind of accountability mechanisms. But ideally, the program would the ESA is essentially pinning a check to the shirt of the child to take to school.
It's
So
as
the
close as
ideal
possible, yeah.
yeah. So the ideal program would be an ESA program that is not limited by anything except the choices that parents make and the forces of the market.
Interesting. Andrew, what do you think? What's your wish list?
Sure. So to piggyback on that, Indiana has both the voucher program as well as a new ESA program, and I have children participating in both. The ESA program in Indiana is only applicable to special education students, so students with an active IEP. So we've talked about the accountability requirements can be burdensome, especially for a small Christian school. So an ideal model, that funding would go directly to the families, not the school. The state's role would then, with those funds, would be to verify legitimate educational expenses with the family, and the families would carry the responsibility of reporting or documentation or compliance that their child is participating then in educational related activities. So I've seen it personally with a few of my daughter's participation in the ESA program. What the state does is that they allocate funds in a special account for her name. And we then, as her parents, can use money for educational expenses like tuition or curriculum for special needs such as speech therapy, occupational therapy, school supplies. And it even allows for some extracurriculars such as swim lessons. But we, as the parents, are accountable to the state, not to any school, to then maintain her IEP. We are required by Indiana to keep her participating in the statewide testing. And then every purchase we have to make, we have to submit that for approval before funds are paid out. And that model really lifts the administrative burden off the schools. It puts the decision making and responsibility, that power into the hands of families. So there's greater educational freedom, less red tape for the schools, and yet it still maintains that accountability on how those public funds are used. So I think that approach has a lot of promise. If I had a wish in Indiana, it would be that the ESA program would be expanded and eventually replace the voucher program that's currently used by most states.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's so interesting that you've had the opportunity to experience both. So you're able to contrast that. And I love that perspective. Mike, what about you? What about your wish list?
Well, it follows what they said. So would repeat basically that that's the simplest thing. And the best thing is you let the parents be the ones who make the decision, and it goes directly in and through them. I think I'm still we were doing this 10 years, and every once in a while we still chuckle at some of the numbers and some of the things we have to do and all the parts of it. And so I'm grateful that anything exists at all that helps students. And so I know that may be the overly pious response to this thing, but it really is. I'm grateful for it. Ideally, totally directly to the parents, and that's all of it. But still grateful for what Lord's allowed to accomplish through this whole thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. So there may be some things you wish school choice would change. I have heard some things schools have been able to do because of school choice. And of course, there's the influx of new families and there's, funds for other things. You guys have already kind of alluded to that just a little bit. Is there anything else that you haven't already mentioned that would be great to mention here that you've been able to do as a result of school choice? And Jeff, maybe you could weigh in and share what you're seeing at a high level, if there's any things that have stuck out to you that have been able to be accomplished because of this that we haven't already mentioned.
Well, in states where school choice programs are robust, the schools are thriving. So there are, Mike and I have often talked about this in Wisconsin. You will end up with the haves and the have-nots. So the haves are the schools that participate, and the have-nots are most often the schools that choose not to. Occasionally, there will be a school that chooses not to participate, and because of a really strong base of support from somewhere else, from a sponsoring church, from a foundation. So there can be schools that choose not to participate, have a really strong base of support, but those are rare. The huge majority of Christian schools have operated on a shoestring for a long time, and the scholarship dollars that come with school choice programs have allowed them to increase faculty pay significantly. I remember years ago talking with a pastor in Arizona, which is one of the early adopters of school choice programs. And he said one of the first things they were able to do was take away the tuition benefit from their teachers and turn it into salary for their teachers, because all of their teachers qualified for participation in the school choice programs.
Yeah.
So for them, that was $100,000 budget change that went from a benefit now to a salary increase for their teaching staff. And I've seen that multiple times. I could tell you about 2 schools in Florida that targeted their school choice funds to capital improvements, and they paid for their new buildings 100% with school choice funds.
Wow.
And so there are a number of schools that have seen enrollment growth that allows them to offer more course offerings for students, pay teachers in better ways, pay off facilities. there've been a lot of really positive things in all of the places where school choice has become robust.
Those are great examples. Mike, what about you? Do you have anything else to mention?
Yeah, in Wisconsin, the way the money comes in is what's called an eligible education expense. Everything has to fit under that category. And one of those is what you can pay to where you rent your facilities from. So we technically rent the facilities from Bay City Baptist Church. Bay City Christian School rents from there, and other schools in the association have done the same thing. And so we pay them money for this and also for utilities. And so by merely covering just the facility or just the utility payment that the church typically in their budget would have paid for. So I would think most church ministries are paying for the electricity of everything. Maybe something goes back and forth, but that's primarily those things. All right. So now you take that money out of the church budget. They no longer have to pay for basically 75% of the electric bill, which they would have done before. That gives the church money. It's all legal. It's not like it's from there, but it frees up that money to be able to be utilized for, additional staff member, paying off buildings, different programs, and just be able to broaden what the church wants to do in itself. And so that was one of those side benefits that you kind of didn't really think about initially.
Right. Yeah.
But it
Excellent.
was there, and it was significant as far as getting things paid off on the church side of it, not just the school side of it. And so that was a big deal. Now it took some little headaches to get through that because you had to separate some things together. But when you got there, then it works out really nicely. And as I mentioned, I think the benefits are the biggest thing to teachers. That initially we had this thought that, well, we should just give them. We're not going to raise their salary that much. We're just going to give them some extra benefits. And so we kind of gave them bonuses here or there because you didn't know where things were going. And then after time, you think, well, let's just kind of make this thing happen. And so we started raising salaries. And I think one of the neat things, I don't know who I heard it from earlier in my ministry, somebody said that, having your teacher salary 75% of the public school is a good goal to ever get to. Now, and most of us were never even remotely close to that. But then when you kind of look at it now, you think, except for the health benefits, we're really not that far off from that number. And so that's been huge to the teachers. And it kind of alluded to earlier. So what's going to happen if and when? Well, then you revert back. You adjust to that, just like we're adjusting to this now. And it's just something that you ride it as long as you can and benefit as many families as you can until something significantly happens, and then you change.
Yeah. Andrew?
Yeah, so for years, Christian educators have made deep, personal sacrifices and financial sacrifices to serve in the ministry, and that is still true, and that heart of service hasn't changed. But school choice just gives us as a church and school ministry more resources to offer those competitive salaries, improved benefits, and then even things like professional development. Before it was a teacher wanted to work on their master's degree, well, how much can we help? Does the church need to take up an offering to contribute toward that? And now the school board's able to just, blanket approve and really promote our teachers to be pursuing those professional development opportunities.
Yeah, that's great. So encouraging. But I have a question. Nobody mentioned the bus. I sure hope some of these funds are being helped to fix the buses. I mean, aren't Christian schools known for their buses? I know when I was teaching, our bus blew up, and I thought that was just kind of normal for Christian schools. So hopefully somebody...
Jenny, I hate to tell you this, but I'm pretty sure school buses are still church buses. A few places we managed to improve on that one, but for the most
we'll put
part,
that on the wish list. We'll put that on the wish list. We'll get there.
Hey, can I follow up
Sure.
a couple of things they said with an illustration? So I'm going to use a school in Florida. I'm not going to name them, but Florida's got very robust school choice program. When this school first decided to participate, they had an enrollment of about 150, and they were going to limit their participation to 30% of their student body. They were able to, and they were going to use all the funds to pay off capital costs. They were able to hold that 30% for only a couple of years, because once the school choice programs become universal in your state, you're talking about kids who are already in your school. They're already there, and now it's available to them. So they were only able to hold that for a couple of years. They were able to stick with for a while, the paying off of capital expenses, and they were able to pay off facilities with that. They've grown from about 150 to 400 kids, and they've been
Wow.
very careful to maintain their mission. So I don't think you would see a whisker of difference in the mission of that school today than you would see from 10 years ago. And then one other thing about them, I just saw a salary chart their administrator shared with me, and they compared what they pay to the county that they're in. And their salaries are 85% of what a teacher
Wow.
would get
Good
in the
for
county
them.
that they're in. So there are schools doing that, and it is parental choice that's making it possible for them to do it.
Wow. Incredible. Thanks for sharing. That's great. Thank you, all three of you. Those were great. Okay, so as educators, it's really important that we are always looking forward. I remember feeling like I was always living in another year. While the teachers and students are trying to finish a year, I'm working on the next. While others are planning for the next school year, you're making your 10-year plan. So what do you all see in the future of school choice? I know we can't any of us know exactly what's going to happen, but how do you see this going or not going? And maybe, Jeff, you have more of a perspective in your position kind of overseeing that, but each of you, do you see anything coming in the future, or how does this look? Jeff, do you want to start?
So this will follow up a little bit on what Mike said about, enjoy this while the opportunity's there. But my follow-up to that is I don't think the opportunity is going away. It has gained significant momentum. Now, the progressive left believes that children belong to the community rather than a stewardship given by God to parents, and so they're not going to give up the fight. The fight is going to probably intensify as they lose more and more students from a government-run system. But the momentum is strongly in favor of school choice, and it's not just conservative evangelical Christian ministries that are part of that. I tell people quite often, one of the things you've got to understand is we're not driving the debate. Uh, we're not big enough, strong enough, powerful enough. Mike mentioned two groups that are very engaged in school choice: Catholic schools and Lutheran schools. And depending on what state you're in, those are very powerful forces in the state. I'll add a third group to that. That's Hebrew day schools. And if you're in New York, particularly, that's a really strong force in there. Now, New York doesn't have school choice yet, but those are groups that are strong advocates for school choice, and in that they're also advocates for protecting the independence of schools and the religious liberty of religious schools. The Catholic school is not as concerned about that as evangelical Christian schools are, but so I think the future for this is actually really, really good, and I don't see it going away. I see it probably modifying in some ways because of pressures that are put on it. And so we'll have to maintain the continual vigilance to protect the religious mission of our schools and the opportunity to participate in those programs while maintaining that religious mission, the biblical fundamentals that are so significant to us.
Yeah, good insights. Mike, what about you?
In Wisconsin, we have a liberal Supreme Court now, and so at any time somebody can pull something up and bring it before the court, and there's no telling what's going to happen. The thing that's positive about it right now for our state is that it is etched into law, and so it's not something you can just kind of blow away. It is part of what we are. The other factor in is Milwaukee is a liberal city, as most big cities are, and they were the ones who initiated it. And so there are a lot of people. I think we're up over 52,000 students in the state that are part of it. And so School Choice Wisconsin is trying to get as many families as possible involved in the program, because that's going to make it more and more complicated for them politically to undo it. But there's always going to be talk about, appeasing the liberal left and trying to get rid of these things because of how it's hurting and damaging public schools. And so we hear that all the time. The biggest ploy right now is putting on the tax bill, on the property bill, what the how much money goes to private schools. And there's only one reason for it. So people say, "Oh wow, look how much money we're losing. Our public school are losing." They don't put open enrollment on there, but they want to put the choice dollars on there. And so again, it's right now the political winds are blowing favorably, even in a purple state like Wisconsin is, and so that's positive. But it's hard to say for our program how it's going to play itself out nationwide. I get it, and each state, of course, is different. But
Sure.
so
Andrew, what do you see at the school level? What do you think?
Well, in Indiana, some of the recent questions I've had from families in our church that are homeschool families, are there options for homeschoolers to participate in and benefit from the school choice program? Is there ways that homeschool students can be partially enrolled or virtually enrolled? And we've seen the growth in Indiana of virtual schools utilizing the school choice program as well. If I could ask a question to Jeff, I'm very curious if he has any idea on if he expects there to be federal expansion of school choice that then might impact state programs that are currently in place.
Yeah, great question.
Yeah, so there are efforts to implement a federal program. So very recently, there were efforts to pass the Educational Choice for Children Act, and then that was rolled into the budget reconciliation bill. So President Trump's one big beautiful bill, and that does have in it a provision for a federal school choice program. Uh, the shape of that is still kind of uncertain. So right now, that is an opt-in for state departments. So I think the way it's worded, the governor of the state would have to opt in for the state to participate. Um, it would be a tax credit scholarship program. So there would have to be operating student scholarship groups, SGOs, scholarship granting organizations within the state. So it will work as a tax credit scholarship program, but it's got some really positive features to it. It's a $1,700 dollar for dollar non-refundable tax credit for a contribution from an individual or from a corporation, distributed through scholarship granting organizations. So a couple of pieces that we wanted in the bill that did not come out of the reconciliation process. So a reconciliation bill is a budget bill. Because of that, it's supposed to have fiscal or financial impact and not policy impact. And so on the Senate side, the parliamentarian has a lot of power. The parliamentarian on the Senate side stripped out some provisions that were really important to us. He stripped out the religious liberty protections that were in the House version of the bill. So as the bill is shaped up right now, it doesn't have the really strong religious liberty protections that we think would be important for our schools. And then he made it an opt-in rather than necessarily a program that will go nationwide to all 50 states. So we'll have to see how all that takes shape. A lot of what a bill like that looks like eventually has to do with the regulation writing process more than the bill itself. And those are still things that have to take shape. But it's a first step, and the opportunity to bring school choice to blue states that have not been favorable to school choice. We'll see if the governor's willing to say no to a lot of parents who are saying, "Wait a minute." So there's some really positive signs on the federal side, and if that takes place, then that it strengthens the likelihood that school choice is here to stay.
Yeah, that's great. Andrew, did you have anything else you wanted to add to that? I just want to make sure I didn't cut you off there.
No, I think about smaller Christian schools and those that don't necessarily have the administrative capacity to handle maybe that initial burden of participation. But I hope as these programs grow, not just in Indiana, but in other states, AACS, WACS, and other state associations will be able to continue to support these smaller schools and help them step into these school choice programs with confidence and clarity.
Yeah, for sure. Mike, Andrew, Jeff, this has been great. I have greatly appreciated the varied perspectives, your insights from boots on the ground. It's just so helpful to hear from those who are actually down in the trench on this and, from varying levels. I really appreciate your work on this on a daily basis and in Christian education on a daily basis. But thank you today, especially for taking your time to share with us and talk us through this incredibly important and really a pressing topic. It's just been such an honor to have you all on the show. So thank you again for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I enjoyed the opportunity.
Thanks so much. God bless.
And to those of you who are joining us, thank you so much for being with us today. I hope you've learned a lot. I hope you've gathered some great information and insights. I know I definitely have. Remember to go to teachereditionpodcast.com to learn more about the show and to submit your questions for our upcoming episodes. Of course, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and follow us on social media. Now, once again, it's time to get back to your day. But it's not just any day. Every day in the classroom is your day to impact and inspire through God's power and also through His grace working in you. Now, go do what God has called you to do.